how we are perceiving currently the situation around the eIDAS adoption. So, Namirial Digital Trust Services, we are operating under the EU regulation that has been in place since 2014, came into force for trust service providers in July 2016. And so we're also looking into the expansion that's now currently part of the proposal of European Commission for long-term archiving, for example, what's also referred to as eIDAS 2.0. Probably coming into force something like 2024. We are not just focusing on our certifications and accreditations that we have in our home-based country, Italy. Antonio, you are responsible for the international market expansion, and there is several good reasons why we are operating with qualified trust services also in countries like, for example, Spain, and with additional trust services in France. So you may want to comment a few words on that.
Yeah, just a few words, but basically, eIDAS is a European-wide regulation, but at the end of the day, you have supervisory body in the local member states that may not really have all the same rules, which means that you cannot get some types of certification in all the countries. Just to make an example, we are originating from Italy, and in Italy, you still cannot certify for electronic register delivery or signature preservation, which is something you can do in Spain. That's one of the reasons why we asked our acquired company researchers to certify for electronic register delivery well ahead of all other, all other companies that we have, for example, in Italy. So sometimes it's important to have a different, different possibility to interact with the supervisory body, and this can give us additional flexibility. And on top of that, we were able this way to build with Namirial in Italy, One Attack in Spain, kind of a load balanced double CA, where we can provide not just business continuity in terms of service, but full business continuity in terms of business, where we are able basically to switch from one to another in very, very fast way and give always the best services to our customers.
So that's what we say about same, but different. So we are playing under the same regulation, but it's differently played for those digital services. And now looking at this from a customer perspective, especially the private sector, what they are asking us is, it's like working on a slider on an equalizer and making simplicity meeting compliance. That's the key aspect, to minimize the amount of interactions and to make these kind of interactions as pleasant as possible. This is the key requirement that you can see in customer cases. And if you look into digital processes, then you have different stakeholders with whom you're dealing with. So think about this for a second. Which kind of processes are you most interested in, from which background? Let's say from which department, which industry, and which geography are you looking at specific topics? Because this is a solution that actually it can be just used based on the actual requirement. And so in Germany, Bitkom just recently published, along for the Digital Office Conference, the most recent Digital Office Monitor. We still have a lot of organizations that run their processes on paper. So it's just 22% of the German organizations that have adopted electronic signature as one of the digital trust services. So quite a lot of paperwork still in the business, and it's also in the public sector. That brings us to the conclusion that we really need to dig into the use cases specifically and into the industries and geographies. We heard earlier today at the conference many talks about the focus on qualified electronic signatures. That's one of the options to trigger an electronic signature that's created based on certificates. There are also options to use, for example, so-called advanced electronic signatures, and you can create them with different methods. With regards to driving the adoption, really in omni-channel, whether in in-person scenarios or in remote scenarios, it's important to keep in mind there are many ways to Rome, as they say in Italy. So there are many ways to create trustworthy, legally binding electronic signatures. There are also other influences. Throughout the pandemic, we saw that many solutions were implemented a wee bit quick and dirty. and also not with a focus on the compliance aspects. Several solutions with US background, they may suffer, for example, full compliance with GDPR. There is still the US Cloud Act looming, and we do not have yet a transatlantic framework agreement. That's just a political intent that was announced by Ms. von der Leyen and Mr. Biden, March 25, 2022. But that doesn't replace the Safe Harbor Agreement so far and the Privacy Shield. So depending on how you're looking at this, you may see that there is a GDPR infringement with some of the solutions on the market, primarily provided by the US players. There are various options to go for when it comes to deployment. We are seeing the typical approach is to start with a shared SaaS deployment, and then from there to move into the more flexible options via private SaaS. And we still also have a large amount of organizations that actually run their solutions on premise. We'll dig into that in terms of optimizing the digital trust services in a few minutes, together with Klaus, Antonio, and also Adrian. It's important to understand that digital trust services shouldn't be an isolated part of the solution. Actually, we call it workflow orchestration, and that workflow orchestration might be centered around a document that is requiring signature. It might be centered around the identification process. It might be centered also from the general transaction. And so what we are providing as Namirial are two puzzle pieces, but based on an open platform. So you can see us interplay with many of the identification providers, not just here in Germany, but all across Europe. And we'll have a landscape about these interplays also in a few minutes. So let's look at this from a customer perspective, really. What they want to be, they want happy users, and they want a happy compliance, a happy legal team. And so this requires to improve these processes over and over again, also looking into what's next, coming up with eIDAS revision 2.0. So I was asked Adrian, that has the daily conversation with our customers, how about to improve the user experience and what is currently bothering users and how can we do it better? Adrian, you may want to have a few words about that.
Thanks, Jörg. So every time you talk about solutions, you talk about a different portfolio. Namirial has the luck of having all the solutions required for an end-to-end experience. So we start from onboarding, we continue with the signing process, and then integrate it out of the box with trust services, and finalize everything with an electronic archiving solution. Now, having so many solutions also brings the complexity of having to put all these solutions in a way in which the customers feel comfortable of using them and do not drop out. I can give you my experience from the territory from South Central Eastern Europe. So I can tell you that we look at this customer experience and optimizing the user experience from two angles. On one side, you have to offer these solutions in a way that no matter what type of signature, for example, you're using, even if it's a simple signature, an advanced signature, or a qualified signature, it will not add complexity to the process. It will be fast, simple, and every user, no matter the age, should be able to use it. This is one angle. The other angle refers to how to keep this experience consistent over different channels. So many discussed about omni-channel experience. We think we managed to do both. And I guess the number of customers that we have in the different countries in which we are present, either directly or indirectly, is proof that we managed to do this. Now, we identified 4 use cases, and in this way, I'm going to relate to the omni-channel experience. So we talk about point of sales or point of service type of experience. Then we talk about the mobile sales, we talk about the remote signings experience, and we talk about internal document signing. In all of these, through having you can address all of these experiences through a wide portfolio of solution. And Jörg presented earlier the different types of companies that were recently brought into the Namirial family. So all of these acquisitions, mergers, allow us to offer a broad portfolio of solutions. So all of these were key in us providing a user experience which was easy it was simple enough for every user, no matter the language that they spoke. The most used type of solutions are the signing platform, which is out of the box integrated with trust services provided by Namirial in the majority of cases, but also by third parties. And when we refer to third parties, we talk about companies from countries such as Turkey, where we integrated the largest TSP provider. We talk about an integration, simple integration with trust services, so that everybody can sign with a certificate. That could be a session one, so used only for a specific signing scenario, or could be a long-term certificate on token or remote. We talk about automatic signing scenarios. And we created all of these products in order to optimize the user experience. This was key for us when thinking about how to approach the markets in which we're present.
Okay, thanks, Adrian.
Sure.
In terms of other optimizing aspects, we look into the solution deployment. We just read it briefly, shared SaaS, private SaaS, or on-premise. Klaus, you know customers that are using actually everything of this from some of our global customers. So what are you seeing as the challenges in deployment?
Yeah, thank you, Jörg. So for sure, the regular shared SaaS is the most cost-effective way of using a e-signature solution. It's also very reliable out of the box due to multi-data center deployment. So if you can live with the small restrictions you have here in terms of mainly branding, what the UI looks like, which signing certificates for non-qualified signatures are used, with its updates and release cycles, maintenance window, that's certainly the perfect solution. We just recommend that you watch out for potential compliance conflicts, especially if with regards to the US Cloud Act, as you, Jörg, mentioned it already, if the e-signature vendor is an American-based one. More flexible though, and some especially larger clients, especially in the finance area, if they go for a SaaS, require that is a private instance that is actually reserved to the single customer. This gives you more flexibility. You can better customize the e-signing solution here to your exact needs. You could even say private SaaS is the new on-prem. So you have full control over the white labeling. You can even, for non-qualified e-signature, we can issue certificates that are issued to the company for which we are providing the private instance. Very important for many is that they have control over the actual update cycles. They want to stay on the same software release for 2 years. We do that with long-term stability versions, even provided via SaaS. And of course, you can fully select where you want to deploy the actual server. Should it be in Amazon or a local provider in Germany, for instance?
Thanks, Klaus. Yeah, you wanted to add something here.
Yeah, on-prem is still a viable option for many companies that actually do not like SaaS. So it's important for much customers, for many customers that have the capacity, that have their own data center. So we don't see this go away. Absolutely important for some. Here, what we do at Namirial, we enable an easy deployment so that customers can stay on the latest release, but the customer fully runs the servers themselves.
Good. So we have covered a bit the deployment challenges. Now, one of those cumbersome things in the past used to be the identification for certificate provisioning for a qualified electronic signature. Antonio, we're seeing quite a bit of developments here towards how to do it better and things that are already now available and are in production. So you may want to comment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you introduced in a previous slide this concept of slider, where on one side you have user experience, on the other side you have the compliance. And over time, I think we are very, very good in positioning this slider exactly right point to get the best user experience for the specific use case. But if you get into also identification, that things may really becomes more complex and the user experience can become difficult. Up to a few years ago, this was this way. That's why I call this slider, this concept, the tyranny of the slider, because you have to get a compromise. But now, since a few years with artificial intelligence, with machine learning, deep learning, it's completely different. You can decouple. You have now a slider for user experience, but for security, for fraud management, for compliance, etc. And you can get really the best user experience for the customer, keeping, the best possible compliance support. Just to make an example, the reason why we bought this company, Teos in France, is that they have a machine learning engine, which now going back to 2015 for identity document check, which is very effective. And to add a document, we just need to do a retraining. They have a face match engine, which is also quite proved in the market, which is based on deep learning, is very, very good. So what you get is basically artificial intelligence helping in the identification phase, helping also in checking and avoiding hemorrhagic fraud, because you have fraud you can always have, even face-to-face, but you want to avoid hemorrhagic fraud, so serial frauds. And we do that with a lot of proprietary techniques where we have proprietary database, where you look at the matches, photo matches of the past, at the document numbers, etc. So at the end of the day, you can get a fantastic user experience. And depending on the supervisor body, this can be complemented by an operator just approving that, or for some supervisory body, it's okay to have a full self-based artificial intelligence-based solution. I think this is really the evolution, and we'll see on the market. Actually, we see now on the market solution where you get are identified in less than 2 minutes, and you can sign a complex workflow really very, very easily, like clicking on your PC or tablet or phone.
Thanks very much, Antonio. And also, this is related to the same but different. It's not just the supervisory bodies for the trust service processes, but also, for example, for anti-money laundering when it comes to the financial supervisory authority. So really to understand who is looking into this on a national basis, but based on a global European solution that can be tailored towards what is required. With the pandemic, we also saw that several organizations just picked up some silo solutions because they were just looking for one specific department, for example, for the HR department that has, in many cases, not so regulated processes. So that's the other aspect when it comes to optimizing. Do you run 3 or 4 different e-signature solutions within your company? That's not unusual, especially if it's a globally operating company. And we are now seeing the trend towards to move not necessarily just to one single supplier only, but to 1, 2, or 3, maybe even also having a plan B in case if some of the suppliers are going for a price hike for whatsoever reason. So avoiding silo solutions, but also avoiding a vendor lock. These are important aspects. What we mentioned a few slides earlier, is it possible just to move a slider between the either simplicity or compliance, or is it achievable to do both? Well, of the implementation. Okay, so as the recording has just started now, I'll just resume that you can cut and paste and start again from. One of the most interesting stories about the evolution of using electronic signatures in the private sector is from Zenshop. That's an organization in the HR environment. They actually implemented electronic signatures, qualified electronic signatures for temporary employment contracts already several years ago. 2019, on eIDAS stage, they introduced how they were simplifying this particular process. And Zenshop is also continuously upgrading this process using various means of identification. And there is a recording available from Work Culture. That's another Bitcom format that was back in 2021. And you can actually access this particular recording.
Bir sonraki session'dan devam ediyor.
Folks.
Jörg, you are on mute.
Now I am on mute. So
now you're back.
Now I'm back. Was I on mute while I was talking about ZenShop?
No, it was just for the last few sentences.
So someone put everyone on mute. Good. Folks, with regards to the options for identification, for provisioning of certificates for qualified electronic signatures, there is a broad array of this. And Klaus, you are typically challenged to provide the options to integrate with other identity providers as well as with services for remote ID proofing. Klaus, are you with us, and are you able to speak?
Yes, I'm with you. Yes.
Great.
Yes. So thank you. Yes, at the end, what customers want is typically the most easiest possible identification possibility. So in the various countries, that means if there is an eID that is widely in use, to simply access that. And for those users who do not have such accounts that can be used, it's for instance required for issuing qualified e-signatures to do a instant identification, possibly with self-identification procedures where no wait time is for a call center agent, where you are done in 2 minutes. So that is what the market is asking for right now. And we see somewhat a shift here from old video-based identification to other schemes like eID and self-identification.
And this self-identification, you may hear different terminologies. It could be sometimes called selfie-ident, robo-ident, auto-ident, etc. And it's also sort of same, but different. The important aspect is these schemes need to go through also a conformity assessment. And before certificates can be issued, that needs to be not just tested by a conformity assessment body, but also there need to be some conversations with the corresponding supervisory body. So this is the currently relatively and very complex landscape on remote ID proofing and digital identity. What we will be seeing coming up in the future is the architecture and reference framework on EU digital identity. But as you've heard earlier today, this is something that is in the making and currently under construction. So 2023, 2024, this is saying we'll be seeing this maturing to a higher level. And so the solution that you are selecting today, whether it's from a trust service provider or whether it's from a signature workflow orchestration provider, should have these developments of the upcoming European digital identity wallet already also in place, so that you have a future-proof system and not just something that was maybe created in India or in the US without that development in mind. For those that want to dive into the basics of electronic signatures, we've just created a white paper that we've widely extended now for the German market and for the Austrian market. It'll be on my plate to deliver something for the international European market in English language coming up sometimes later this year. If you would like to have a little bit of reading in order to dive into that segment, maybe also as a primer to share with your peers, feel free to reach out either via Swapcap, via email, or any other tools like LinkedIn, Xing, or Twitter. And so as we had this as a presentation, there is also the option to really meet us and have a conversation in the Meet the Speaker section. So for 2 o'clock now, you are spoiled with 5 choices. And one of those 5 choices is actually to meet the speaker, meet Adrian, Klaus, and Antonio and myself in the Meet the Speaker section, where we will be looking into your questions and provide you with some answers. So I think, Kim, that wraps up this session for right now. And so you might want to have the closure words for the session and pass over to the next person on the international stage.
Great, I will do that. You already did the Meet the Speaker introduction. So again, for everyone who's interested to join the conversation afterwards, feel free to join Jörg, Klaus, Adrian, and Antonio for a more individual one-on-one Q&A. He just has the explanation on screen, and you'll also find the link to that in the chat. So if you want to join that, feel free to join the group. And having said that, a big thank you to Jörg, Klaus, Adrian, and Antonio for not only sharing your insight, but also for bringing in a very practical presentation. I guess everyone is looking forward to get the slide deck and to click on these links to explore the videos, because I guess this all makes it a bit more tangible.